Greetings to all. The youth is often considered the greatest strength a country can possess. It is evident in all spheres, whether it be sports, academics, or culture. But there is one particular sphere where the youth lacks participation and involvement: politics. We as proposition intend to change that by lowering the voting age. As the first speaker of the proposition, I carry the team tagline forward: this house would lower the voting age. Now, this process would be a gradual one and not a forcefully imposed one. The voting age would be lowered from 18 years to 16 years of age. This change would be brought about after two electoral cycles. This time is purely given for raising political awareness as well as education among the voters as well as the candidates who would be contesting the election. The Electoral Commission of the particular country would be involved in further decision making as to how the process would work. Now, we as proposition need to prove one thing: why including the demographic of 16 to 18 years of age is necessary for a democracy. The case of the proposition is majorly based on four arguments. These are how the inclusion of a larger demographic is beneficial; second, how new issues would be raised; third, how the current system of political practice would also change; and fourth, how many other disadvantaged communities would be represented as well. As the first speaker, I intend to elaborate on the first two arguments. Now, let me ask you something. The age group of 16 to 18 had been largely ignored in the past. And why was this? Because the older leaders felt that they are not worthy to be given the right to vote. They are not educated. But we believe that there is a change now. We believe that due to modernization as well as rising political and social awareness, this group is more beneficial to be a part of the democratic processes. Moving on to my first argument as to how the inclusion of a larger demographic is beneficial for us. Now, for this argument, I would be answering two questions. First, how it would strengthen the country, and second, how it would strengthen democracy as a whole. Firstly, how it would strengthen the country. First, there would be more participation of the youth, and as I said before, youth is the greatest strength. Now, this would also strengthen the political practices of the country. Second, it would also lead to better policy making. Why would this happen? Because new agendas that are the policies of the youth would be raised in parliaments, and this would lead to a greater political competition that would be only on the line of policies and not religion, caste, or race, or anything that was used as a propaganda tool in the past to argue with the middle aged ones. Thirdly, the 16 to 18 age group has much more time for political activities and practices and has much more energy and involvement in it. This is evident from the youth protests in Nepal, Bolivia, Belgium, and whatnot. They had been actively participated in all political processes just for the fact that they were excluded from the main political process, that was elections. With the policy being passed, it should include them in the main political sphere, that is electoral practices. Moving on to my second question, how it would strengthen democracy as a whole. First, it would increase public participation. That is the major idea of a democracy. It would also increase the leaders that are from the age group of 25 to 30 who were largely reluctant in the past to not be a part of these practices simply because they felt that they had no youth support from the outside. With the passing of this policy, they would feel that there is a youthful structure that is existing and would help them to participate better. Then, old leaders tend to make new changes to impress the youth. As I mentioned before, the greater political competition would only be on the lines of policies that are for the youth as well as for the other people. Now, I would like to bring about the fact that universal adult franchise may be harmed by this, as that could be mentioned by the opposition. But let me tell you the ideal of universal adult franchise. It was to include all voices, it was to include all opinions. And with the passing of this policy, we intend to make the voices of this group heard as well. Moving on to my second argument, at how it would raise new issues. Older leaders have tend to fixate upon irrelevant issues that had been already resolved in the past and need no further attention. This is mainly because they are conservative politicians who cannot afford a controversial opinion. They tend to maintain a populist view just so that they can remain in power. But with the inclusion of youth in politics, this would lead to a change in that policy. Younger people have a tendency to realize new problems. The Gen Y and Gen Z has greater problem solving and troubleshooting skills. Issues like climate change, liberalization of market, etc. would be raised. Let me give you an example of Greta Thunberg, who has been in the news for the past few weeks. She raised the issue of climate change among conservative politicians and raised major awareness about this. Now let me go to the past for a moment here. Vietnam War, which was largely popular in the United States in the past, but when youthful struggles and as well as youthful protests started, there was a worldwide resentment on US involvement. This led to new agendas being raised in the United States, making it a greater democracy than it was before. Now, let me tell you what I have proved today. How the inclusion of a larger demographic is beneficial for a country as well as for the democracy as well, and how it would lead to new agendas being raised. I would like to ask the opposition as to what their definition of democracy is. Is it just because there is a group that needs to be represented, or is it that people who have experience or knowledge should be represented? This is the need of the hour, and this is the change we need. Thank you.